and he also has the same type of line weight adjustment that we see the other guy. So now we go into Photoshop. Once you go into Photoshop, I combine these two together and then delete the layers underneath, the rough layers. And what that'll do is that'll free up the memory for Painter. Right, so I have both software loaded. It's a common practice I've done for many, many years. Just always have both. That way I can have Photoshop also as a security measure, because if Painter is very unstable. Even this version 10, it crashes a lot, and once in a while it'll actually eat your file when it crashes, which is a huge problem. But if you have the same file open in Photoshop, you basically have a safety device because it's saving RAM. Because even if it corrupts your file, you have one that's open in Photoshop, so you just do Control S and save it, and it goes back to the way it was, right? So these are all lessons learned over time. Before no one told me that, so I work and your files gets corrupted and it's due in 2 hours. Then you're like, oh shoot, what the hell do I do now, right? And that literally has happened on some projects where it crashed literally hours before I was supposed to turn something in, and I lose about hours and hours of work and just going, what do I do now? So lessons learned, and you try not to repeat them. Okay. So these guys now is getting the line weight treatment, going in, adding small details here and there, things that will do really well, or details that will hold up really well when we start doing highlighting. Okay, so this stage now we're going to do a very quick rendering. We're not going to paint these guys up. That's not the purpose. But we do want to bring them to a level where we could show they're showable, I guess. So, and you saw me do a really quick highlight layer. That's to show students that if you have no time at all, you could just do some highlights and you're done. But if you have an extra hour or so, you could do this pass, which is what I'm doing here. I'm building a quick mask around the image, just paint it in with whatever color or whatever you want, and then form a mask by erasing out the negatives. And so you have this layer that could be selectable and without touching the background. Right? It's very common practice in comic books or whatever industry. We all use this technique. It just basically separates them out from the background. So this process takes a little bit of time to set up, but once you have it set up, everything else goes very, very fast. So, and also again at this stage, this last stage, this is the least stressful part, at least for me during production, because your design's done. So at least you got something that you can always show. You like the design, it could go into production. So all this stuff, I consider luxury items. It's not absolutely necessary in the production pipeline, especially if you're working in-house. It's not really necessary, but if you have time in-house, like you have a very relaxed studio and the game has a 5-year development cycle or something like that, then you have plenty of time to render these things out. Right? It's a luxury that we don't get as much working on freelance basis, because everything is due within a day. So I'm just adjusting the background, erasing out a few masks. So once we have the mask, we do stuff like this, where we could darken it, we could lighten it, all without touching the background. Just have the mask selected. Right. So this is a very quick method to render. This is not a painterly render. This is going to be a more of a comic book style way of doing it, which you just do dark, medium, light, and very bright highlights. So it reads very well from across distance, especially printed out. This image I actually printed out to our students at A3. It looks pretty cool once it's printed. Much better than digital, actually, because the presence on the page is nice and big. So I still do my work with printing in mind. So I guess it's an old school thing of me. Right? These days, maybe a lot of people don't print anymore, but I still like to see stuff on big giant papers. So here I'm just adding highlights, right? Picking the background, taking the lighter value of the background, and just adding some highlights, ding, 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 here and there, right? Very comic booky. So you can see the positive shapes versus the negatives. It's very fast. This method is very fast, and it makes it look cool. It makes your image look popping out of the paper instantly, because you have a dark on light on dark punch right here, right? Character's dark is on a lighter background, and then there's lighter stuff on top of the character. So you have this very nice read that goes into 3D. And it'll help your 3D artists as well. So when you're working in production, you always have to keep in mind that this stuff will go down the line. This is not some beautiful drawing that you're gonna hang on your wall or something. That's not it. You're trying to design something just like designing a pair of shoes or a product for a phone or something. It's a product you're designing, and that needs to be communicated down the line. So even though it's a drawing that you are doing, essentially it is a blueprint, it is an engineering sketch. So the more information you can relay to the 3D artist down the line, the more you will be useful in production, and you definitely want the 3D artists on your side. So over time, they'll like working with you versus maybe someone who doesn't indicate as much, because they could get their job done more efficiently working off your concepts than someone who, for example, indicates a lot. Therefore, giving the 3D guys more work. So again, it depends on who you're working with. Some 3D artists prefer suggestive concepts, so they could do a little bit of design on their own. Whereas some 3D artists prefer everything to be drawn out, so they just model. Their enjoyment of the job is to model, not to design, right? So you just have to get to know who likes what. Right, so more highlights, just adding again, not hard stuff. Right? I added some bounce light, some just kind of cool bluer lights coming from the bottom, just to round him out, because his shoulder, his whole arm is a cylinder. Yeah, so he's gonna get a core shadow highlights. His chest area is kind of like a half of a sphere, so you render with that in mind. His weapon gets some highlights. So here the rendering is not how we treat a painting, how we treat one light source and do all this stuff. This is a quick indication method. The highlights might not even be correct. For example, it's got like 10 highlights on his chest, which indicates 10 different light sources, right? But it doesn't matter in this case, I think. It's just a quick thing. This is a accent color, just to pop them out a little bit. It's not very important to put in, so I just kind of show. It's just more just showing students the different possibilities they could do within this type of presentation, which is a quick method way, right? And sometimes you see me take the line drawing off, right? You saw it right there just for a brief second there, to show that if we wanted to, the line drawing eventually go away. If we spent another day on this, these two drawings here, we could actually get rid of the whole line and just leave it as a painting. So this guy here on the left is getting a faster treatment. He's not going to get a mask layer, so all he's going to get is a highlight layer, which will pop his forms out a little bit against the background as well. And always focus on the face area first. The face is something that, especially on a character, is something that most people look at first. It's just human nature. Here we are adjusting the background to match the same hue as the characters, so a little bit of brown. And this is just some background stuff. We always focus on presentation as well. A good design, when presented well, will sell even better than a good design that's not presented as well. For example, you draw in, especially when you're dealing with producers and these kind of people who don't come from design, when you present it well, they also like it. It's a human thing. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like you take the best steakhouse in the world and buy a $100 plate of steak and everything's fine, and then you go to the kitchen, even though the kitchen is super clean and it's all antibacteria and everything, like the sink is super clean, brand new, for example, right? And you dump the entire plate into the sink. Now, does it make a difference to the taste of the food or anything? No, it doesn't. Is it dirty? No, it's not, because everything's clean. But imagine the same food now sitting in a sink. In your mind, you're going to think, oh, this is not good anymore. It's dirty. Do you know what I'm saying? It's the kind of same thing with design. If you have something so good, don't present it in a bad manner. Present it well. So this little thing I'm drawing here is just part of presentation. Get the viewer into the mode of a medieval knight or something. So this drawing is definitely coming to an end. So I hope this week that you guys are got something out of this. And next week we might do something similar, where we do a painted version of a character. So that'll be fun. So hope you guys enjoyed this episode as we wrap up by signing and writing some notes, and I will then see you guys next week. All right, so until then, have a good weekend. All right, bye-bye, everybody. And by the way, I'm still here, but almost done. All right. And wrapping up in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, see you guys. Bye-bye.